I don't know about saying good things about you or not, but firstly, I do want to thank Matt. Matt, you and your department has been fantastic with us over and in the support to AAERI over the last couple of years. And what you have just summarized today is just a glimpse of what has been happening in the recent months, but not what we really went through over the last couple of years, where we had to keep fighting against odds in keeping Australia on top of the mind of our students in India. But I also, while I'm thanking you, I also want to thank Brett Goldsmith from your department, who has been fantastic over the period, and I know he is ending his tenure in Delhi very soon. So through you, I pass on that thanks from AAERI to you, your department, and to Brett. Thank you, guys. Okay. Firstly, Nishi, where are you?
I'm here.
Okay. I had to say something good about him, but when you put on the slide of Gold Coast right in the beginning, you mentioned the tourist capital of the world. You should have said education capital of the world, because I chose to come here to study. Okay, so for me, I'm coming back home because this is where Australia started for me in 1990. And I've got Sushil here somewhere in this audience. Sushil and me, we were roommates on the Gold Coast, and we thought of starting and becoming an education agent when we went back in 1991. So if you have anything to blame, then you blame Bond University and Gold Coast and not to me. Maybe we chose a touristy place to do our education. But that's how Gold Coast has been. It was fantastic being at Bond this morning, Cheryl. That was beautiful going back to the university this morning. I also want to thank my AAERI executive colleague. A sprinkling of them are here, but I really want to thank those who are not here also. Bubbly Johar, he is the vice president. Some of you know him. His name says bubbly, and he's been bubbling all the time, but he's fantastic and a great support to me. You've also got Rupesh Patel, who's secretary. He's the one who has been doing most of the registrations. Balaji is right here. Balaji, where are you? He's the general secretary. These guys do the hard work, okay? I only take the credit. So that's Balaji. Kishore is somewhere around. He manages the money. Hopefully he'll have the money to pay for the dinner tonight. Rahul is not here. Rahul has been a past president and also a great support for me on many events and activities. Nishi is right here. You just seen Nishi. He has been organizing this event and coordinating a number of activities in India, especially in the last couple of years. Rupesh Duggal is somewhere around there too. He lives in Melbourne and in Punjab. So in a sense, why I stress on Punjab? Because that market contributes a large chunk of students to Australia. So he's a very important executive to have. Nirmal Chawla is right here too. That's the man from Chandigarh. He's the only one who dresses very well. And so I tend to stay away from him most of the time. Prasanna Acharya is not here. He's the one who stays away from agents because he's the one who stops rogue agents from becoming members of AAERI. He heads the application committee. Other than that, we've also got two key members. We've got Sonia right here. Where is Sonia? Right there. Sonia, she is our Australia representative. She heads the chapter in Australia. And we don't have Mahesh today. He looks after the Nepal chapter. So that's my AAERI team. I'm especially taking so long to name them because this is my last major activity as president of AAERI. My term ends at the end of the year. So I still have got a couple of months as I introduce myself to someone that I'm going to be a pain for another couple of months. But that's where it is. But I'm really thankful to these guys. They've done almost all the work over the last few years. This is a slide from 2019. Those of you who attended the AAERI face-to-face event in Perth, we had indicated that the market was hotting up. And if we live in a 10-year cycle, as we kept talking about it, something was going to happen which is going to stop the numbers. We didn't know. I'm not trying to say that we predicted COVID. We didn't predict COVID. No one could predict COVID. But we knew that the indicators was right there. Migration was being curtailed in major cities of Australia. The government was talking about putting some checks. Phil is right here. Thanks, Phil, for joining in now. There were indications that something could happen because the numbers were already climbing. But this is what we had presented in 2019. this is what we saw, and there were two surprises there. One, of course, COVID was a surprise, but the other surprise was the rapid V-shaped recovery that we are seeing in India. Now, I know, Jonathan, you had several slides to show the different scenarios. V-shaped recovery was also one of the slides, but you were betting more on a U-shaped or slightly longer recovery, but it did surprise us to see the kind of recovery that we have, because to think of it, Phil knows, and the kind of, the way we were facing the media all the time, because the borders were closed right up to December last year. And Canada and the UK were taking most of the limelight. We didn't really realize, we couldn't plan for the recovery that we saw after that. So India's obviously seen, and when I say India, I mean South Asia, has seen a kind of a V-shaped recovery. And when I look at this is based on the student visa numbers available on the Home Affairs site. But if I look at their July and August visa grants, that's 9,000 visa grants. Now, if I move that to a 1 year period, now of course it doesn't mathematically work into multiplying by 6 for those 2 months, because there are seasonality into it, it is still indicative that we could be back to 2019 numbers or very close to 2019 numbers from South Asia. Matt, correct? Yeah? We could be in this period. So it is a very, very sharp recovery. Now, the bad news from that is the fall over the last couple of years was not as drastic as the fall that we saw 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, when Indian numbers fell, they fell by 97%. And what we saw was just based on the media articles and the reporting around Melbourne and Sydney at that point of time. The fall was not as drastic, and that makes us think, oh, that's a positive here, guys, because market did fall, but it didn't fall as much. And the other positive is, the last time it took a few years to recover back. Here we have recovered very quickly over 1 year period. So these are the two positives I take from the numbers, Jonathan. The negatives are, I get a feeling that we are moving towards a 5-year cycle and not a 10-year cycle. And why do I say this? I'm not a statistician, but I look at the UK cycles that India sees. India sees a 5-year cycle. It doesn't see a 10-year. It just rises up and then it falls suddenly. And as if you have been following the media articles in United Kingdom, they're already talking about curtailing dependent visas. They're talking about putting some checks there. Students don't have accommodation right now. There are many things which are happening in the UK, which indicates to me that maybe in another 1 or 2 years, UK numbers are likely to start falling once again. And in the case of Australia, if the number really continues to rise this way, we could see some checks happening very soon. In fact, we've already started seeing checks in the Indian space. Last 15 days, number of agencies have received visa refusals, left, right, and center on GTE grounds. Nepal, we have seen almost the tap being turned off. And the negative that I see from Nepal is the message that Streamline is not working. Because Streamline institutions have been asked to provide, the students applying to Streamline institutions have been asked to provide financial documents which indicate a higher risk than even the highest risk possible. Students are being asked to provide 3-year financials, 1-year itemized bank statement. Today, if even my mortgage broker doesn't ask me for an itemized bank statement, even for, forget about 1 year, not even 3 months. And here they want 1-year itemized bank statement for Streamlined institutions. So when you really think of it in that way, it's already hotting up. And the other thing that comes to my mind is that all this is indicative that there's been a lot of talk about India being possibly going to fill the Chinese gap. And I think that we had been overestimating or hyping up the importance of India as far as numbers were concerned. India will continue to be important. It will remain a very important market for Australia going forward. But whether it will fill those numbers or whether borders will just open up for every Indian student coming into Australia, I don't think that's going to happen. And we are already seeing that from the market. So these are a couple of negatives that we saw from here. Matt has already done this part of the presentation in his when he was talking. Last 12 months has been fantastic working with Monica and Austrade. Monica, thank you very much. You came in, absolutely guys. She came into India right when we needed her. She came in just before the borders opened. And I remember at that time, frankly, now Australia is doing a lot more. It has money to do a lot more. But at that time, we didn't know what we are going to do. We didn't even know how quickly we can make the market recover. And some of the first activities that we did in India, Monica, you can correct me, I've often been corrected by people. First activities for you in India in terms of traveling around and doing the events, they were with AAERI. And we took you to various destinations in the country. We did media reports around Australia all through November, December, and January of the last year. Now you don't need me, you don't need AAERI, but at that time we worked very closely. We still continue to work very closely. Home Affairs came back to us with issues of visa delays, and we had students waiting for 4 months to get a visa, sometimes even longer. This was a time at Home Affairs that we always try to work with solutions. And I think Nishi mentioned about something next. We always think ahead, how we can offer a solution. And in the very first initial days of Matt being in India, he traveled over to Calcutta for a workshop with us. Do you remember that, with Home Affairs and all the things that you were putting up on the board there? We were thinking of solutions. We were all throughout looking for solutions. And we started working with Home Affairs into how we can work around reducing fraud and how we can present applications that have a higher likelihood of visas. So that was the sole goal. That work continues. We have a new team of Home Affairs in Delhi, of course, with fresher mindset. So we will work with the new team, and the work continues with Home Affairs on that front. We also, well, I think there's one line missing there. Nishi, blame to you. We also worked with education very closely on the ESOS training workshops. And in fact, that was a very important part, because along with all this, the professionalism is in the next slide. Okay, sorry, my fault. So this is what happens when you don't do your own job, okay? So that's it. Some of the best things that we did was we worked on professionalism, on improving the professionalism of our members, and that's where education stepped in, and we ran these ESOS training workshops in various parts of India with Matt, Brett, Priya, and the team there. We introduced Home Affairs to the possibility of DigiLocker. Now, you would say, what is DigiLocker? We were all looking around for options how to verify documents. And one of the key things was we were talking to companies which will verify before we lodge. Most of them would charge money. Then we also started talking to the government of India's digital arm, which was already digitizing all the mark sheets and financial documents using the national ID. Now, if you ask me, I live in Australia. We saw all the news around Optus and the data hack, and I was extremely apprehensive if, say, something like DigiLocker gets hacked, because DigiLocker is all around Aadhaar card, and everyone's academic IT returns, ID proof, everything is digitized. Right now, they've only done for half of the universities, but in next 2 or 3 years, everything will be up there. So you can pull the data from DigiLocker. The only catch was only an Indian organization can reach to them. And this is where AAERI fitted in very well. So we introduced Home Affairs to DigiLocker. There were some apprehensions. It's still a work in progress, but we have done some remarkable work with DigiLocker possibilities. Now, DigiLocker is a free service. It doesn't cost anyone anything. Using DigiLocker, now there are at least 6 startups and 6 other edtech companies which are working on using DigiLocker for a portion of their checks. Plus, they are doing other checks like employment, financials, and others coming in. DigiLocker APIs are available to any verification company. So we have been facilitating that. Our interest is that if we can do as much as possible, I'll tell you, Indians are extremely intelligent. We'll find new ways to fraud. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is We will do as much as we can in terms of the checks, which can give us some reassurance, and that's what we are aiming for. For example, we've been reading about fraud on English. The fraud on English was not with the score sheets. We've gone past that. Now we've got others taking the test for you. So what I'm trying to get at is there is a limit to what we can do, but we are trying our best to bring in as much as possible. AAERI recommended health. We worked with Home Affairs. We suggested one very good way of improving the turnaround time is if our students can do the health checks before the visa is lodged. This is how auto grants used to take place in the pre-COVID period. Initially, Home Affairs was reluctant to introduce it, but what we saw is that in the last 1 month, they have allowed health checks to be done before the visa is lodged, and we also have reports of auto grants happening with a few students. Because then the algorithm and the system picks up a complete file and everything is good, it can be processed quicker. I'm not again taking credit for it, but it was part of our submission to Home Affairs at least 6 months ago. AAERI continues to work for solution. There's the ESOS part is very clear because Nishi was involved with that process, so he put it on a separate slide. So that's so that's where that work is already acknowledged. This is the current picture on what we are seeing in India at this point of time, and this is again from a limited perspective. First and foremost, we are predicting UK to be hitting its peak within the next 6 months to 1 year. And we expect that next year, in the next 12 months, then after that, we will start to see UK slow down. The reasons obviously are around various things internal to UK, but also the political talk coming out of the UK around dependent visas and things like that. There is also students are reporting that they don't find too much after the post-study work. That's almost like a dead end after that. Canada is also set to decline, extremely likely. We have now reports in the media. You guys must have seen the Fifth Estate program, which was aired last week on Thursday. It is their equivalent of the Four Corners. It is already being talked about all across Canada because colleges have reported to have recruited 10 times their capacity. And that is going to be leading to a fair bit of checks and balances. Reports of visas taking 4 months in India. Those things are all falling into place gradually. And there is also a bit of an India-China political unease because we have seen some communication between the two countries where the Indian government warned students studying in Canada against hate crimes and things like that. So I think there's a little bit of a noise around that too. US continues to be in demand. It will continue to be in demand as the quality destination. But if you look at Indian rupees to US dollar, it's become very expensive. US dollar is somewhere around 82 or 83 Indian rupees, which is the highest it has hit ever. While on the other hand, Australian dollar is extremely affordable to the Indian rupee at this point of time. New Zealand, it almost died off as a destination of choice in the last couple of years. They're making some baby steps. We'll see how it goes. They don't really take too many of our students, but some students will continue to choose New Zealand. Australia, these are the things that we need to do. SVP was introduced in 2012. It is 10-year anniversary of streamlined visa processing. Is the time to say goodbye to it. The reason for it is very simple, because it's not working. It is just not working. The GT is not working. Students who should have been streamlined are being asked for 3 years financial documents. So the entire concept of streamlining, we need to really reconsider. Phil, through your office, we want this message to go out. We are finding the GT or the SOP. SOP is firstly the first chance when Australia is telling the student to be untruthful. The statement of purpose is our way of telling the student, if you want to get a visa, lie. The student goes out and says, oh, I want to come back and build India. I want to make it a great nation. These are great jobs that I can get here. when we all know that they're coming here because of the post-study work and the liberal post-study work and the unlimited work rights that Australia offers. So that's the first starting point. And in my opinion, now again, the Home Affairs uses SOP only to find reasons to refuse a visa. So I'm known to be very like this here, but this is the reality, guys. There is a need to take a fresh look on the entire business of streamlined visa processing. Getting very expensive for international students. This is another thing which is very, very important. We talk about inflation in Australia, but there's inflation in India too. There's inflation in every part of the world. And I think the universities which had introduced scholarships, etc., during the period of COVID should continue to have scholarships for good quality students without making it sound like a discounting. This is the borderline. This is something which you need to be aware of. Offering a scholarship to somebody who's barely passed from an Indian university won't work. It will actually deter a quality student from coming to Australia. So I think we need to work on that part of thing. Keep Australia more affordable. The fees continues to increase. And believe me, this afternoon, I was at the AAERI event. We talked about retention. I believe the reason why we are having a problem about retention in Australia is twofold. One reason is because Australia has given out the message that it is full-time work and part-time studies. We need to correct that. And the second reason is students arrive here, they get into a course of $40,000, find another college offering $20,000. They don't really value the university for $40,000, where they anyway have to go only 1 day a week to study. And what they realize is this is a question of return on investment. I think there's a need to introspect and look at our own pricing for international students to remain in the game going forward. Agreed. This is a slide. I'm not really getting into too much. This is part of our ESOS submission. Sub-agents is nothing new. We are often told that we are against aggregators. We are not against anybody. We have our submission for ESOS review actually only asks that principal agents of universities should be accountable. They should be accountable even for the visa process. They should be accountable for counseling. So counseling, application, and visas are the three roles that education agents offer. And that's the only thing we have asked for. Look around and see the refusals. Look around and see the instances that one set of documents is provided to the university and the other set of documents is lodged with the student visa application. What proportion of it happens with the principal agent and what proportion of it happens with the sub-agents? You will get the answer straight away. And so I'm not really getting too much into it, but I just want to indicate, take out 40 minutes and watch the Fifth Estate program on Canada, which came out last week. It was in Canada. It used hidden cameras in agent offices in India to show the level of counseling going on. And it's an extremely respected program in Canada. I'm asking you to take out that 40 minutes. It's be more worthwhile than spending 40 minutes even at this session. It actually shows you where the aggregator model goes wrong. Have a look. Every single agent who was caught on the hidden camera was an aggregator's sub-agent. Next year, this is the last slide, guys. I have to share this with you. This is going to be the last AAERI event in Australia where you'd see me being so blunt. Next time I'll sit with you and probably sip a glass of wine too. I'll also have a chair. This time I don't have a chair. Our event is oversubscribed. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We didn't anticipate. We've had to organize those chairs on the side, and I had to tell my executive colleagues, please stand up and let others sit. That's how we have managed to fit all of you in. Next time I'll grab a chair and I won't move. Our last executive meeting will be in December this year, when we are taking up two of the major issues. One around how we can ensure that Feb-March intake next year is not affected. What we can do as an agent to make sure that we put out quality visa applications and our university partners are seeing better conversions. And that is our aim in the next 2 months. The second is also around, we want to discuss this issue of retention. We recruit students offshore. They come here, they move, we lose commissions. We really want to find a way what can we do? I know we can't change the government policy around unlimited work rights. We can't do other things.
It's been changed.
It's been changed?
In June next year.
June is 2 intakes away, Phil. June is far away. But I never expected it to be extended even this year. But that's how it is. A new team at Australian High Commission is also in place, and we are going to be working very closely. I've just said that we've got Brett also leaving us. Matt continues. That's our continuity. Home Affairs got a completely new team. We are already working with Ruben and Andy. And also, I believe, our High Commissioner too ends his tenure in the next couple of months. And I think in India, the role of a High Commissioner is extremely critical because Australia and India have come together they become very allies in terms politically and also economically. The only thing I read in the newspapers is the next High Commissioner is likely to be a career diplomat or someone from the department and not a political appointment. So we'll look out for who it is, and we'll see how closely we can continue to work with the new team. And also, of course, we will continue to work towards recovery. And lastly, we would hope that there are no other blind spots going forward. In India now, there's a buzzword around everybody getting back into the face-to-face mode. Agents are seeing students face-to-face. We would hope universities also become more face-to-face. That's extremely important for our students' experience of a university life. And I'll tell you one more thing. A lot of hyped up companies in India, a company like Byju's, for example, I think you guys have all seen them as sponsor of the Indian cricket team. They're all struggling financially. I believe they've sacked 2,500 employees just this week. The work, because nobody's ready, even everything is going face to face. And I think we want to work very closely with you and our membership to take Australia over the next couple of years. So thank you very much, guys. And I also thank NIB, without whom we wouldn't be here. We've got Keon here. So thank you very much. Thank you, guys.